Welcome to Module 2 of the Rapid Takeoff and Estimate Software Skills course. Today's session is based on several items of the settings menu in Estimator Express. During this module, you'll learn how to set up your price book to match the prices that you pay. We'll spend some time reviewing the rates in each of the 5 sections of the price book for labour items, materials, plant, subcontractor and sundry items. I'll show you how to edit the prices of existing resources and also how to add your own resources to the price book. I'll also show you how to use my favourites to set up Estimator Express to use your preferred suppliers for particular materials. We'll also spend some time looking at the specifications. You'll learn what specifications are and which specifications are suitable for which type of job. I'll show you how to change resources and their usage factors within each specification. I'll also show you how to adjust your default profit markup and inflation rates. So hopefully you've launched Estimator Express and you can see the main menu. As you can see here, I'm running Estimator Express 2018. If you're running an earlier version, all the items are laid out in a different place. You can follow the training, however, if you're running Estimator Express 2017 or 2018, it doesn't matter. Once we get into the training, it's all exactly the same. So at the top on my main menu here, we have got various options to navigate your way around the software. As I mentioned, we're going to be looking at the My Settings aspect of the software shortly. Before we do that then, I just want to talk you through all of the other aspects of the main menu because it's easy to overlook them. So we've got the software status section. This shows you how up to date your software is. So if you've got a green light, it's obviously up to date. If there's a red light, that means there's an update you need to do. It shows you how long you have left to run on your support and updates. So if you're coming to the end of your 12 months, that will turn to amber. And also the software status section shows you how long you've got to run on your merchant links. To the right here, we've got the installed features and bonus packs. So that just basically tells you which bonus packs you've purchased or downloaded. At the top here, we've got the message box, and that will change from time to time. We use that to send you a variety of messages, such as updates that are available. So at the moment, it's telling you about the latest Contracts Expert update. You'll also see information about new support options that are available and bonus packs and so on. And then lastly, we've got the registered to details on the left-hand side of the screen here. On Estimator Express 2017, it's on the top right corner. If you want to alter any of these details, so for example, if your company name changes or your address changes, if you click on where your address details are, the contact details dialog box pops up. So you can highlight any of the text and change it as necessary. And then you would click update once you've done that. I'm going to click cancel for now. Okay, so that's a quick tour of the main menu. Let's get started, and we're going to go into the master price book of Estimator Express. So where the menu options are, if you could click where it says My Settings, and that will take you to the Settings menu. We're going to start by going into My Price Books. That will take you to the Library of Price Books. We're going to open the Master Price Book in a moment. Before I do that, there's something important I want to mention. You may have noticed that there's a Copy Price Book button available here. However, it's best practice to set up the Master Price Book, the one that comes with the software, to reflect the rates that you pay rather than to create your own. If you create your own price book from scratch, what it means is that you'll have to manually keep all of the prices up to date, which is obviously quite a big job. Prices in a custom price book won't be updated when you do a price download. So to make life easier so that you don't have an ongoing issue with keeping prices up to date, you're best off working with the Master Price Book. Before we open the Master Price Book as well, I just want to explain how you open items, how you select and open items in Estimator Express. So in this case, we want to open the Master Price Book, but it's the same if you want to open a specification or a workbook. You can double click on an item to open it. So I could double click where it says Master Price Book here. But be careful when you're doing this, because if you catch the bottom of the line just here, if I double clicked there, Because the software is based on Excel, the cursor will jump to the bottom of the Excel page, which is hundreds of rows down the screen, so you'll find yourself having to scroll all the way back up to the top. The other way that you can open an item is to right-click on it. So if you have a go at doing that on your screen, if you right-click where it says Master Price Book, you then get a right-click menu, which is exactly the same as the top menu here. So you could click Open Price Book to open your price book. And then the third way of opening an item is to click on it to select it and use the options on the top menu. So either by right-clicking on the Master Price Book or by using the Open Price Book button, open the price book. Once you've done that, you'll be asked which section of the price book you want to open. We're going to work our way through the different sections, so we're going to start with the labour section of the price book. So if you select labour from the drop-down box and then click select, in a moment you'll find yourself looking at the labour section of the price book. So the rates in Estimator Express are hourly rates. So if you work by paying people by the day, you need to divide your day rate by 8. So for example, if you paid someone £160 a day, that would be £20 an hour. You'll see we have many different labourers and gangs in the list, probably more than you actually employ. It may be that you have multi-trade people. If that's the case, you would set their rates to match the tasks they perform. So if you have a guy called Bob who does your bricklaying and also your joinery, then you'd find the bricklayer rate and the joiner rate and set them to what you pay Bob. So how do we edit these labour rates? To edit multiple rates in one go, you need to click the Mass Editing Tools button on the top menu. If you click Mass Editing Tools and then click the top option, Edit Prices, you'll see that this column here, the purchase cost column, turns white. In Estimator Express, you can only type in data where the background is white. This is a really important rule to remember as it applies throughout the software. If the background is blue, as it is here, you can't type anything in. But now this column has turned white, we can type things in. So if we start by looking at the bricklayers at the top, you'll see there are a range of individual labourers and gangs. So what you want to do when you're reviewing your prices is to start by looking at the individual prices. So let's look at our bricklayer rate. Don't worry if your rates are a bit different from my software, I've already spent some time changing them. So at the moment, the bricklayer is set to £20 an hour. Change that to whatever you pay your bricklayer. So I'm in the East Midlands here, which is, prices are probably a bit lower than elsewhere in the country, so I'm going to set that to £18 an hour. Once you've done that, go 2 rows down and you'll find the bricklayer's labourer. So set that rate to whatever you would pay your bricklayer's mate. So I'm going to set that to £10 an hour, just for argument's sake. So once you've edited the price of the bricklayer and the bricklayer's labourer, you'll then need to do a quick bit of mental arithmetic and change the prices for all of the gangs that make use of them. So the gang prices don't update automatically. So above here we've got the bricklayer and labourer. At the moment that's set to £32, but I need to add £10 and £18 to work out what my total would be for bricklayer and mate. That would be £28. So change the total cost of that gang and then repeat that process to update the cost of 2 brickies and a mate and 4 bricklayers and a mate. So I'll do that at my end. I'll give you a minute to do that at your end as well. So in a couple of minutes there, we've updated the rates that we pay our bricklayers and mates and their various gangs. When you've typed a number or a cost into Estimator Express, you must either press the Enter key on your keyboard or use the mouse to click into the next field. And the reason you need to do that is that you're confirming the figure you've entered. If you type a figure in and don't press the Enter key and you have a flashing cursor within the cell, then the top menus and the menu buttons don't work. So make sure you click the Enter key or click elsewhere onto another cell to confirm the figure you just typed in. So once you've updated your bricklayer and mates, you can then work your way down the screen looking at the different trades and updating the prices accordingly. Once you've done that, we're not going to go through all of it today. We don't have time, unfortunately. But once you've done it, you then need to click the Mass Editing Tools button again. At the moment, we're in price editing mode and we want to switch that off. So if you click Mass Editing Tools and then click Edit Prices once again, this will switch off the price editing mode. You'll see the purchase cost column turns blue again, and that means that you can't corrupt any of the data in there because it's all locked down again. Okay, so that's how you would edit your rates in the labour section of the price book. We're now going to have a look at the material section of the price book. We can move to a different section using this section drop-down box on the top menu. So if you click on the section drop-down box and then select material, we'll go directly to the material section of our price book. Just a quick tip while we're here. In Estimator Express, on most screens you will find a Filters or a Views button. And on here you'll find a very useful tool. It's the Highlight Selected Line tool. If you click on that, you'll see it highlights the selected line, which is really quite handy when you're trying to look closely at the data. It allows you to focus in on one particular row. Okay, before we do any price editing, we're just going to practice some of the ways that you can filter the price book. The material section of the price book can seem a bit daunting. It's quite a big list, but with a few clicks you can break it down into much smaller sections, and that makes it much easier to work with. So the first thing we're going to do is practice filtering out the different suppliers. Some of you may only have HPXL price tracker products, but many of you will have other merchants whose terms you've downloaded into your software, such as Jewson, Travers Perkins, Keyline, TradePoint, and so on. So if you want to filter your price book to show just the products of one particular supplier, you can do that using the Supplier Filter. So if you click on the column which says Supplier, and then click on the drop-down arrow to the right-hand side, you'll see a menu appears here. And at the bottom, we can select which merchant's products we want to display. So I'm going to click Select All, and that will deselect all of them. I've obviously got several different merchants set up here. We're going to select the HPXL price tracker products. All of us will have the HPXL price tracker products in our software. So that's what we're going to be working with today. So once you've selected only the HPXL price tracker products, you can either untick the other suppliers or use that select all tick box at the top to unselect the other ones, and then select just the HPXL price tracker products. Once you've done that, click OK. Now the price book will be filtered to show only the HPXL price tracker products. If you want to try it again, click on that supplier drop down arrow. It's to the right of the supplier heading, and you can select an alternative merchant. Click OK. So you can see here I've got Jewson products with my discounts set up. Right, once you've practiced doing that, let's reselect just the HPXL price tracker products. And we're going to have a go at editing some of these material prices. So ensure you've got HPXL price tracker selected, click OK. And our price book there is showing just the HPXL price tracker products once again. The second filter we're going to look at is the product type filter. So for example, blocks, insulation, drainage, those are all product or material types. So you can filter the material types using the type drop down here, or you can use the types drop down box at the top of the screen. For our training today, we're going to use the types button at the top of the screen. So click on the drop down arrow and you'll see a big list of materials will pop up. In fact, you have to scroll down, there's so many. We're going to start by selecting blocks. So locate the blocks type and click on it. And now the price book is filtered to show only the block type of product. Hopefully you've now got a short list of about a dozen items. If you have a longer list, like me, it's because you've got all suppliers showing, so we need to filter the products to show only HPXL Price Tracker products again. So we've filtered the type to show only blocks, and then we've selected only HPXL Price Tracker products. So now we've got a small list, we can practice how to edit the prices. So it's exactly the same process that we performed on the labour section of the price book earlier. So to edit multiple prices, what we need to do is click the Mass Editing Tools button, and we need to select Edit Prices. Once again, this purchase cost column will turn white, meaning that we can type figures directly into the column. Now we're going to edit some prices of some block products. For trading, I usually change the everyday blocks, these solid dense concrete blocks, 7 Newton, 440 by 215 by 100 mil blocks. These blocks are priced by the square metre. So at the moment the list price is £16 per square metre. Let's say I pay £12 per square metre because I get a decent discount at my local merchant. Once you've changed the price of the solid dense concrete blocks, change them at your end to whatever price you'd expect to pay. Once you've done that, click the Mass Editing Tools button and click Edit Prices again. You'll recall this switches off the price editing mode. Something slightly different happens when you do that in the material section of the price book. A dialog box pops up asking if you would like your prices to be set as an adjustment. You should click Yes when it asks you this. So I'm going to click Yes. And when you do that, you'll see that an adjustment figure appears in the column here. This shows the percentage difference between your price and the downloaded HPXL Price Tracker list price. So what this means is that if the average price of blocks goes up, your purchase cost will also go up automatically. So in this example here, we have blocks at £16 per square metre. I've set the purchase cost to £12 per square metre, and that gives an adjustment percentage of minus 25%. I pay 25% less than the list price. So if the average price of blocks jumps up to £20 per square metre, then my purchase cost will become £20 minus that 25%, which will mean it'll go up to £15 per square metre. So what this means is that once you've edited prices to match your suppliers and set the price as an adjustment, then as the market moves up and down for material prices, your purchase costs will automatically move up and down in line with the market, keeping that approximate discounted rate versus the market price. So this means you only have to set up your prices once. Okay, so let's have a bit more practice at doing that. We're going to have a look at another product type to edit. So if you can click on the Types drop-down box again at the top of the screen, and this time we're going to select Aggregate. Again, if you have multiple suppliers showing as I do here, click on the suppliers drop-down filter, deselect them all and just select those HPXL Price Tracker products. You should now have a short list of aggregate products. So to edit these prices, once again we need to click the Mass Editing Tools button and we need to click Edit Prices. That purchase cost column has turned white, meaning we can just type in the prices that we pay now. So take a moment to edit the price of the ballast bulk bag to begin with. Typically we find people pay between £30 and £35, but type in whatever you pay for your ballast bulk bag. Then edit the price of the building sand bulk bag and the building sand standard bag. So that's the second and the fourth item down. I'm going to put some example figures in at my end. If you match them to what you would expect to pay, and then always remember, once you've edited a price, you go back to the Mass Editing Tools button and click Edit Prices once again, which will switch off edit mode. When the box pops up asking if you want to set those price changes as an adjustment, click Yes. and Estimator Express calculates the adjustment figure there. So we've been looking at HPXL price tracker products for the purposes of our training, but you can of course use the principles we've just worked through to edit materials from other suppliers. So you may use a principal supplier for most of your materials, but also use other suppliers for specific ranges. So perhaps you use Jewson or Travis Perkins for the majority of your products, but you use a local quarry for your aggregate products. In this example, you could use the downloaded merchant prices for the vast majority of the materials you buy, but then edit the HPXL price tracker products for the aggregates and use those in your estimates. So we'll be looking at how you can pick and mix different suppliers at the end of this module when we talk about my favourites. Okay, so that's a quick introduction to changing the prices of your materials. Before we go any further, I just want to spend a moment talking about bricks. If you can select the brick type from the types drop-down box at the top of the screen, you'll see that bricks are a bit of a special case. I'm going to select HPXL price tracker products again. Because there are thousands of different types of brick on the market, instead of trying to make a giant list of all of them in the software, we have a short list of typically priced facing bricks. So we've got a list of facing bricks at various prices, and below we've got reclaimed facing bricks at various prices. This means that you can simply pick a brick that's closest to the price of the ones you'll be using during your job. This process is done later on when you're creating an estimate using mini specs, and we're going to cover that during Module 3 when we import the Plans Express plans to create our estimate. So that's how bricks work. In the price book, you can also add any product you like. So you can add labourers, materials, equipment or plant, sundries, or even subcontractors. Most items you will want to add, though, will be materials. So whilst we're in the materials section, we're going to make a couple of products to practice doing that. There is no limit to what you can add to the price book. You just need to know a few bits of information about the product. You obviously need to know its name. You need to know how much it costs and how it is supplied. In other words, the unit of purchase. Do you buy them individually, which we would call each? Do you buy them by the metre, by the roll, by the square metre? So for example, if you wanted to add a new type of insulation product that was a sheet product like Celotex or Kingspan, then you know that it's bought by the individual sheet price. Cavity wall insulation is often bought in packs, so you would say that's bought by the pack. When you create a new product, it's easiest to find an existing similar product in the price book first. You can then use that existing product as a template for your new one. Of course, if you need to add a really unusual product to the price book, you can do that. You don't have to use an existing product, but it can save time if it's appropriate. So for our first example, we're going to create a new insulation product. So using the types filter on the top menu, we're going to select insulation. So you have to scroll down a short way until you find the insulation type. So click insulation to filter your price book to show the insulation products. So what we're going to do is add an eco product. We're going to add sheep wool as a product, and that's a material which is purchased by the roll. So to start off with, we're going to find an insulation product that has a unit of purchase of each. So for example, if I scroll down a bit, you'll see some of them are purchased by the sheet, some by the metre squared, but we're going to go for each. So locate any product with a unit of supply of each and click on it. It may say each or it may say EA, as in this one here. That's an abbreviation for each. So locate a product with a unit of supply of each, click on it to select it, and then once you've clicked on it, you can either click the New Resource button on the top menu, or you can right click and select the New Resource option from the right click menu. So whichever way you do it, click New Resource, And a box pops up where we can enter some information about the new product that we're adding to the price book. So first of all, you need to edit the description. So you can drag your cursor over the description, press the delete key on your keyboard, and then you can type in the new product name. So we're going to call this sheep's wool. You can't put an apostrophe in there. I don't think it likes it if you do that. And then we're going to put in the dimensions of the wool roll. So it's 4 meters by 380 millimeters by 100 millimeters. So if you could type exactly the same in on your screen, that will just go through the process of adding a product, even if you're not likely to use it. You don't have to be so specific with the name of every product, but in this case, the dimensions in the description will help you at a later point when you need to tell the software how much area the wool roll will cover. So once you've typed in the description, then we're going to work our way through the different boxes. So the code is automatically filled in by Estimator Express, so we can jump down to the cost. Obviously, you want to update that to reflect the price you pay for this product. So I'm going to type in £47.50 for a roll of this wool. We can leave the discount and adjustment boxes for now. And then next we need to think about the unit of purchase. You'll see this is a drop-down box here, so we can click on the drop-down arrow and select an alternative unit of purchase. So if you scroll down, you'll notice there is a unit called roll. So if you can click to select that. You may have noticed there's a plus button here. You can use that to add a new unit of purchase if you need one. So for example, some new eco products are sold by the bale. So if you wanted to add bale as a unit of purchase, you could do that using that plus button there. So once you've selected your unit of purchase, now you need to think about your supplier or contractor. You can select HPXL price tracker if you want. So if you're just putting generic products in, select HPXL price tracker, or you can add your own suppliers in if you want to. So if you click the plus button, we'll go through doing that. So let's say I've got a local merchant called Rogers & Sons. Type in the name of your local merchant, click OK, and you'll see it's automatically been selected in the supplier drop-down box. When you add your own supplier, you can then filter the price book to show only products of that supplier. And when you create new products, you'll then be able to select your own supplier when you add them to the price book. Next, we need to select the product type. Because we started with an insulation product, it's automatically been allocated the insulation type, so that's great. You can review the delivery and payment lead times, so make sure they're set up correctly for this particular product. And then we can skip down to the VAT rate, check that's correct. It's at the current default, which is 20%. And then lastly, we've got the wastage factor. With a lot of building materials, this is typically set to 7.5%, but you can set it to whatever you think is appropriate for the particular resource that you're adding. So once you're happy with all of the information for that product, click OK. So here you can see we've added our sheep's wool product to the insulation section of the price book. Now let's add another product in, and we're also going to have a look at what we call allowance products. So using our types filter again, if we scroll back up to the top, we're going to select the bathroom type. If you need to, as before, select only the HPXL price tracker products, so we've got a shorter list of bathroom products. Now you see that most of those are allowance products. They have allowance in their description. Now allowance products are the sort of products where the price could be anything from a wide range, as it's usually down to customer choice. So in this example, the customer is very likely to be choosing which bathroom suite you fit, unless it's a budget fit out. You can see that we have a couple of different bathroom suites in there already, but looking at the prices, they're very much budget suites. So what we're going to do is add in a more deluxe bathroom suite. So to do that, we're going to start with the bathroom pack 3-piece suite. So if you click on that to select it, and then as before, we're going to click New Resource on the top menu, or right click and select New Resource. So we're going to type in a new description for this bathroom pack that we're adding. We're going to call it a bathroom executive pack, or whatever you would like to call it. Just a note on the descriptions of products, because the name of a product can appear in your customer quote, obviously you want to use descriptions for items that place them in a positive light. So you wouldn't want to call it a cheap bathroom suite. It obviously wouldn't look very good on a quote. So let's work our way through those boxes and fill out the other fields for this new executive pack that we're adding in. So let's change the unit cost to £2,500. We can leave the discount and adjustment set to 0. The unit of purchase is each as per the original product. Select HPXL price tracker if you're not bothered about assigning that to a particular merchant, or you can add in a supplier using the plus button. Check the type is correct, bathroom is correct in this case. Enter the lead time for delivery and payment for this particular product, and review your VAT and your wastage. Now you may think it's a little strange to have wastage on something like a bathroom suite. This wastage on items that don't really seem to have wastage covers you for the small amount of unforeseen occurrences. If you really don't want to add wastage on there, then you can of course set that figure to 0. It's up to you. So once you've reviewed each of those aspects of the new resource, click OK. Now you may have noticed when you create a resource, it appears with a red list price. Now any products with a red list price won't be adjusted or updated automatically by Estimator Express, so you'll need to manage these prices yourself. Obviously they're not on our original price list. So it's really easy to update the products rather you've added if it's a short list, because you can filter the list to show only the products that you've added. To do this, you want to use this list price column here. So if you click on the drop down arrow next to list price, we can then use this filter by color option. If you hover your cursor over filter by color and then select red, then we can filter the price book to show only the red items. If I select all product types as well, you'll be able to see. If you've got the whole price book open and you filter to show only those red items, then you can see we've got the bathroom executive pack we've just added and the sheep's wool. So every now and again you might want to go into your price book, filter it to show only those products with a red list price, and you can just check the figures are correct and update them as necessary. To bring all the prices back, click on that list price filter again, and you can click this clear filter option and it will remove that filter. It's really important with Estimator Express that you don't add materials that already exist in the price book. So for example, if you see there's an HPXL price tracker building sand bulk bag product in there, but you think it might be a good idea to add your own with your own price, don't do it. Just edit the price of the existing HPXL price tracker sand bulk bag to match the price that you're paying from your supplier. If you create duplicate products, it makes it harder for you to pick them in the future. And plus, as I mentioned at the outset about creating your own price book, you'll then have to manually manage their prices. So only create a new resource when it's for something that does not already exist in the price book. Otherwise, you're just creating more work for yourself. Okay, let's continue into the plant section of the price book. So in the section drop-down box, we're going to select the third option, which is plant. So plant covers tools, equipment, and of course large plant that you may use during the construction process. It may be that you hire the equipment, or maybe you own it. If you own the equipment, you still need to charge for the use of it, otherwise you're not covering your own capital expenditure. So just like the other sections of the price book, you use the Mass Editing Tools button, Edit Prices, to go up and down the list and adjust the prices of any of these items that need changing. There are several different items I want to highlight within this section of the price book. Approximately 20 rows down, you will see there are lines for the high Mac and driver, JCB and driver, and mini digger and driver. So the cost price of these is a combination of equipment hire and also the labourer to drive the equipment, and it's a day rate. So it could be a hired driver, or it could be you, or it could be one of your employees. You need to make sure, however, that the daily cost adds up correctly to cover both the plant hire and the labour to drive it. So if the plant costs £100 a day and your employee costs £160 a day or £20 an hour, then the total plant cost would need to be set to £260. So just spend a moment working out what you would pay for a high Mac and driver, update the cost in the purchase cost column if appropriate, and then have a think about your JCB and driver, what you would pay for both the plant and your driver and the mini digger and driver. I'll just give you a moment to update those. And then if we scroll down the page, you should find items called portable toilet and site cabin. If you can't locate them quickly, which I often struggle to do, then you can always click the Find button on the top menu, or you can press the Control and F keys on your keyboard, Control and F for Find, and then you can just type in a keyword, click the Find button, and Estimator Express will take you directly to the products containing that word. So it's a good way of searching the price book for things. So portable toilet and site cabin are often used, so you need to make sure that the cost is correct. Note, you can see here from the unit of supply that the rates are by the week. So check those and update them if you need to. So once you've updated your portable toilet and site cabin, a couple more lines down, we've got the 20-ton tipper and driver, including landfill tax. So again, this includes the driver costs, so you need to allow for that in the total rate. And you also need to add on the landfill tax amount, which obviously varies depending on which council is charging. So set it up to what you'd expect to pay. And then a few more lines below that, we've got the skip, 7 metre cubed, including landfill tax. Again, make sure that's the correct price, including the council tipping fee. We find that for most of the UK, that's around £180 per skip, but in some parts like Oxford and large parts of the London area, that can jump up to £250 to £280 per skip. So if you don't update this and you're in central London and you have 10 skips over the course of a job, you could end up being £1,000 out of pocket just on your skips. So the last thing I want to point out, or the last ones I want to point out, are the daily parking fee, the congestion charge, and the bay suspension fee. Again, if you're in a city, they can account for large costs, so make sure they're correct. If you get it wrong, you could end up losing a nice portion of your final net profit. So I've highlighted just a few really important items, I should say, within the plant section of the price book there. But when you've got a few more minutes, please do have a look at all the lines in the plant section and change anything that stands out as being very different from what you'd expect to pay. As before, when you've finished editing your prices, click the Mass Editing Tools button and click Edit Prices. Again, that purchase cost column turns blue, so we've locked down the screen and we've finished editing. So we've got two more sections of the price book to look at. It won't take us long to go through these. They're quite straightforward. So on the section drop-down box on the top menu, select Subcontractor. And we'll have a look at the Subcontractor section of the price book. In here, you'll see a list of assorted contractor types. So we've got bricklayers, carpenters, ceramic tilers, decorators, and so on. And they're all set with a list price of £1. This workbook allows you to type in a price for a subcontractor within the Subcontractor Quotations workbook. And we'll come back to that in Module 3. So a typical example would be something like £750 for a plumber to supply and fit 3 radiators and connect them to the existing system. That's a completely made up figure, but that's an example of a subcontractor fixed price that you would want to add to your estimate. And what you would do is you would go into the Subcontractor Quotations workbook, you'd locate the plumbing contractor, and you'd enter 750 into that, and then that would add £750 to your estimate. So these subcontractors always stay with a list price of £1 in the price book. If you want to add your own subcontractors, you can do that, of course, using the New Resource button, but make sure you give them a list price of £1. This will all come together when we look at the Subcontractor Quotation Workbook in our next module. Okay, so that's the subcontractor prices. Finally, then we're going to go to the section drop-down box and select Sundry. Similar to the subcontractor section of the price book, this is a list of £1 people. So we've got everything from architects' fees, engineers, legal fees, stamp duty, and so on. They're mostly used in the preliminary workbooks to assign costs to people like structural engineers, surveyors, planning applications, insurance, and so on. So this is where you estimate for costs that you will incur prior to construction starting, but ones that you will still need to include in your quote, unless of course you don't enjoy profits, and most of us do. So as with all the other sections of the price book, you can create your own sundry costs using the New Resource button. Okay, so that is your whirlwind tour of the price book and how to edit prices and how to add resources to the price book. So once you've finished editing the price book, you can click the Close button. That will take you back to the Library of Price Book screen, and then you can click Close again to go back to the Settings menu. And now we're going to have a quick look at the third option down on the Settings menu, which is My Favorites. So if you click My Favorites, this window will appear. My Favorites enables you to set whose prices you want to use for which types of resource. So using My Favorites is really useful if you have a merchant link with one of our linked merchants, such as Jewson, Travis Perkins, Keyline, TradePoint. If you only have HPXL price tracker products and are editing those to match the merchants that you use, then you won't need to use this function. But if you have a merchant account with one of the merchants that we have a link with, so you can download your terms for, then you will want to use My Favorites. So the most straightforward way to do this is to click on the All Types line that corresponds with your favorite supplier. So say, for example, I use Jewson for all of my product types. You can also do a pick and mix of the different suppliers for the different product types. So say, for example, I use Jewson for the vast majority of my products, but I then use my local quarry for my aggregate products, as I suggested earlier. So what we would want to do is select HPXL price tracker for the aggregate products, and then make sure that the HPXL price tracker aggregate products are set up to match what I would pay my local quarry. Say, for example, I used a local timber merchant. Then again, these column headers really should show up lower down, shouldn't they? I can select HPXL price tracker for my carcassing timber and other timber products as appropriate. So you can pick a mix. So once you've got your settings how you want them, you would click Apply, and then Estimator Express will go through the specifications and swap in your preferred supplier's product for the equivalent that's already in there. Please note this only works with HP Price Tracker and the merchants for whom we have links. So if there's another merchant you like to use but we don't have the links, unfortunately this tool won't help you. So when you have an hour or two to spare, spend a bit more time setting up your price book, remembering that old adage, if you put good in, you get good out. If you spend a few hours tweaking your price book to have the correct costs, you'll then have a good base set of data for use in your estimates. And that will then allow you to use the data far more accurately to obviously estimate your costs, to calculate your net and gross profits, to negotiate discounts and deals with your clients. We're quite often astounded because builders sometimes don't know how much profit they're going to make. If you don't know how much profit you're going to make on a job, how can you know what percentage you can afford to be negotiated down by before you're actually making a loss? So you really need that information at the outset of a job. Obviously, having that good base set of data will also help you have a forward view of your company's cash flow, and it can help you to monitor costs during the build and help you to spot cost overruns quickly. So I'm going to click Cancel to go back to the My Settings menu. And we're now going to turn our attention to the specifications. So from the My Settings menu, we're going to click My Specifications, and that will take you to the library of specifications. Now, to start off, in your software, you should have eight different specifications. Firstly, I'm going to just go through all of the different specifications and talk about what some of the differences are and when you would use them. So starting at the top, we've got the new build specification. This is for jobs which were pre-Part L. So as far as new builds are concerned, it's now redundant. But we have left it in the software for the time being for reference because users have obviously used it historically. The new build spec has the fastest build speeds and defaults to a JCB for all of the groundwork. The next one down is the extension specification. Now this is the current specification for standard extension work. The main difference between this one and the new build spec is that it allows longer build times for many tasks, as an extension is obviously generally slower due to issues like shorter runs, access, care of the existing property and so on. The default excavator for the extension spec is a mini digger because obviously usually you wouldn't have the same amount of access as you would on a new site. The next specification is the renovation specification. It's very similar to the extension spec, but it has even longer build times. So with renovations, it's more likely you're going to encounter unforeseen circumstances, plus there are all the added complications that I've just described for extensions, such as access and care of the property. Next, we've got the timber frame specification. You'd use this specification for jobs where you have a full timber frame kit supplied for the job. This spec is redundant for new build timber frame, but it's correct for extensions using a timber frame kit. The way it works is that it automatically removes the inner leaf from the cavity walls. They're marked as included in the timber frame, and it also removes the timber from the estimated roofs. And that's because obviously the timber frame kit will make up the inner leaf and the roof structure. So when you're using this specification, it's assumed that you'll then be adding a price for a supplied timber frame kit to the estimate. The next spec we've got is the site fabricated timber frame spec. Similar to the timber frame spec, but it only deals with the timber frame walls. So this specification removes the cavity wall inner leaf from the estimated walls, but it doesn't alter the roof structure. So with this spec, you could be using a supplied kit for the timber frame walls, or you can also price your own timber frame panels in the estimate if you're constructing them yourself on site. Again, this version is now only applicable for extensions. Now we're going to have a look at the Part L specs. So we've got the new build Part L spec, which follows the latest building regs and is based on the government's elemental recipe for new builds. So primarily that means increased levels of insulation in the roof areas and the cavity walls. So Celotex type products are the default cavity wall insulation, When you use the Partel spec, you'll also use Partel templates in the relevant workbooks because, for example, in your walls you'll have wider cavities. Then we've got the site fabricated timber frame Partel spec. So this is the latest version of the site fab timber frame spec. So that reflects the latest building regulations. So you'd use that to do timber frame walls only and a standard roof, but with the latest regulations to cover new builds. So if you're doing a new build timber frame spec, you would use that one or the timber frame Partel spec. This is the latest building regs version of the timber frame spec for timber frame kits covering walls and the roof structure. So that can be used for new builds. So for any new build, you will need to be selecting a specification with Partel in the name. So now I've done a quick run through of the basics of what type of job the different specs cover. I'd just like to explain what it is that a specification does. A specification is a bit like an architect's spec. So it's a list of materials, labour and plant that are chosen for a specific job. The idea of having these in the software is that you can customise them to use your choice of products for particular tasks. You can alter the supplied specifications, or you can copy them and make your own, and you can make as many as you like. So a typical scenario where you might want to create your own spec, say for example you like to use a different type of block than the default one, which we have specified. You could copy the extension specification and call a new one. You could then go into it, find the places where the 7 Newton blocks are specified and change them to 10 Newton blocks, because that's the way you like to work. Once that's done, whenever you create a new estimate for an extension, you could select your new extension spec, and you'd know that the blocks are already set to the ones that you like to use. So to summarise then, a specification is just a default way of working. You can of course tweak the specification within every single estimate. However, if there's an item you find you're changing in many or every estimate, then it actually makes sense to come back to the specification in the library of specifications and then make the change within the specification. Over time, you might want to make custom specifications or maybe just change the existing ones to suit different sets of circumstances. And again, that's useful when you repeat different types of job. So once you've made a change, you don't have to make the change again, thus saving time in the long run. Okay, so let's have a look at the specifications in more detail. So for our training today, we're going to copy an existing one, and then we've got one that we can practice on without worrying about damaging the original specification. So if you click on the extension specification and then click copy spec, or you can right click and click copy spec, a box pops up asking us to give the specification a name. So I'm going to call it my extension spec. Call it whatever you like, call it after yourself. Once you've entered the name, click OK. And after a few moments, your new specification will open up for you to look at. Okay, so let's just spend a moment having a look at the extension screen, the extension specification. So on the left-hand side here, we've got the item used for column. This column shows the different tasks. So it could be a material choice, for example, cavity insulation, or it could be a labour task, for example, lay the trench blocks. There are also plant tasks as well. So for example, we've got plant for the excavation of the trench. There will also be the very occasional sundry or subcontractor task, but the vast majority will be material and labour tasks. So in most cases where you see a material task, there will be a corresponding labour task further down the list. So here it says skirting boards, and then further down we've got the labour to fix the skirting boards. And then we've also got the decorator to prepare, prime, undercoat and paint the skirting boards. Each subsection of the specification is organised by materials first. So we've got the materials, and then the labour, and then finally the plant item if there are any. The first subsection we're looking at here is the cavity wall specification and the general walling specification. This means that all of the cavity wall workbooks in Estimator Express refer to this section of the extension specification when choosing the materials and the labour and so on. If you use the scroll wheel on your mouse, you can scroll down and you'll see there are other sections of the spec. So we've got a couple relating to stone-faced walls if you're estimating any of those, and then we've got the partition block wall specification. Keep scrolling down, you'll see there's parts of the spec for different types of wall. Obviously they're not all relevant to all jobs. And if you keep going, you'll eventually come to the tiled roof general specification. All sloping tiled roof workbooks, of which there are many, so that's the apex roof, apex valley, hip roofs and so on, use this subsection to choose the materials and the labour. So if I scroll back to the top, you'll see we've got the item used for column, which is the different material and labour and occasionally plant tasks. Then we've got the description of the resource being used for that task. Then we've got the purchase units, the purchase cost, the build phase, and so on. So the last bit of theory. The specification that you choose when you create your estimate is in control. It's the boss of your estimate. It tells your estimate what to use, how much to use, who's going to do a task, and how long it takes. So it's where all the really important calculating takes place. This is the case for all of the workbook calculators that are linked to the specifications. Don't forget you can always use this filters, highlight selected line option, focusing on particular rows so that you can see the data more easily. Okay, so we're now going to spend a few minutes editing the specification. There are two different ways in which you can change a specification. You can select a different material. So for example, we could select a different cavity insulation type. Equally, you can swap a labourer. Alternatively, you can alter how much of a product or the amount of time, in the case of a labour item, is used for a particular task. So let's start by looking at changing a material. So we're going to use that example of swapping the cavity wall insulation product. So if you haven't already, if you scroll back to the top of your screen and about 15 lines down, highlighted in red is the cavity insulation task. Items in bold red are those that we've given a critical marker. Critical tasks are those which will have a significant impact on your estimate. It can also make it easier to find particular things in the spec. So if you click on where it says cavity insulation, you can actually click anywhere within that line, it doesn't matter. It will select that row. And then we're going to click the Change Resource button because we're going to swap the specified resource for another one. So you now see the price book open up in front of you and the currently selected insulation product will be highlighted. Just a quick tip before we select another cavity insulation product. If you want to close the price book, don't click the X button here. That will close down the software altogether. What you want to do if you want to go back to the specification is click the Cancel button. So you'll see that because the original material we selected was an insulation type material, we're in the middle of the insulation products of the price book. This is handy as we're looking for an alternative insulation product. We're looking for a 75mm Celotex type product from the HPXL price tracker. We use the non-branded name, which is polyiso-cyanurate. So as before, you can use the Supplier Filter to hide the other merchants to make your search easier. So click on the Supplier Filter, unselect all, and simply select the HPXL price tracker products, and click OK. And then we can see all the polyiso products here. So we want to find the insulation board 2400 by 1200 by 75mm board. So that's second from the bottom there. So once you've found that 75mm product, You then click the Select Resource button. Of course, you can right click and click Select Resource if you want to do it that way. The Edit Resource box will then pop up. This happens because when you change a resource, whether it's material, labour or so on, it may have a different usage factor. That is to say, how much is used for a task. You might use a different amount of that resource for a particular task. So in the middle of the Edit Resource box, you'll see this section here called Usage. The usage factor determines how much material is used for a task, or in the case of a labour item, it determines how long a labourer takes to do a task. In this case, we need to set the usage for our new insulation product. The original insulation that we started out with was a traditional cavity wall pack of 5 sheets that covers 5.46 metres squared. The polyiso-sanurate sheet that we've chosen will cover 2.88 metres squared, so obviously the usage of that product is different. The software doesn't automatically change when you select a different product, and there's a variety of reasons for that. So you need to manually tell Estimator Express what the new coverage or usage factor is. You can type the usage factor directly into the box, but often the number is quite meaningless, so 0.183 doesn't mean anything. It's not immediately obvious, so you can click the calculator icon just to the right of the usage factor, and this will help us work out the usage factor. So you'll see there's 2 boxes at the top. So the top one says how many of the item you're using. So originally it was 1 lot of the cavity insulation that was selected, and the bottom box tells us the coverage. So for the original product it was 5.46 metres squared. So it now says we're using 1 polyiso board for 5.46 metres squared of cavity insulation, but we know that's incorrect because the coverage of our polyiso board is 2.88 metres, so we need to change that bottom figure. So now it says we need 1 polyiso insulation board to cover 2.88 square metres of cavity insulation, which is correct, so we can click OK. You'll see that the usage factor has now changed to 0.34722. Again, this number doesn't mean much, but remember to click on that calculator icon and you'll always get that explanation of what the usage factor means. So now we've got that usage factor set for our new material, we can click OK again to finish. And in the spec, you can now see that we've got that polyiso-cyanurate insulation board specified with our correct usage factor. So now that we've changed a product, the first thing we need to do is think about whether or not the new product will alter the build speed, or how long it will take to fit the insulation product in this case. So because we've changed product from one product to quite a different one, the answer is yes. The new product in this case will take longer to install because it requires cutting and taping, whereas the old cavity pack insulation just gets thrown into place. So now we're going to perform the second type of specification change, which is editing a resource. This is where we carry on using the same material or labourer, but we alter the usage factor to use more or less of the item. So as I mentioned earlier, most material tasks, so cavity insulation, will have a corresponding labour task. And if we scroll down, we'll see that that is fixing the cavity insulation. So if you can locate that row, fix the cavity insulation, it's in plain blue text. You'll find when you look across that we have got 2 bricklayers and a mate specified for this particular task. We're not going to change this to a different gang. You could do if you wanted to, but we're not going to today. We're actually going to alter the speed of their work. So to alter the usage of the labour, we can use the Edit Resource button. Click it on the top menu, or right click and select Edit Resource. The Edit Resource box will now pop up. This obviously looks familiar as we've just seen it as part of the changing resource process. This time we've gone straight to the Edit Resource box because we just want to alter the usage factor for our labourers. Click on the calculator icon and it should say that it takes 1 hour to fit just under 28 square metres of cavity insulation. For this example, I want to say that it takes twice as long to fit the new type of insulation. So the easiest way to make this change is to highlight the number of hours it takes and change it to 2. So it now says it takes 2 hours to fit those 27.77 square meters of insulation. So once you've changed the number of hours, click OK, and you'll see the usage factor will change to 0.072. As I said for the earlier example, that figure obviously doesn't mean very much, but click back onto the calculator button to see what that figure actually means. Once you're happy with those figures, click OK. So that's a quick introduction to swapping resources and also changing usage factors of resources. Just a quick word about mini-specs here. You'll see there's a button here to do with mini-specs. In recent versions of Estimator Express, we added a new feature called mini-specs. The idea of this is that you can choose certain product types when you're in the process of creating your new estimate. So currently we have a mini-spec for facing bricks, for roof tiling, for guttering, for fascias, barge boards, and for decoration. There's also one for plant and for labour for excavation. This means that you can start by picking your basic specification, so the extension specification of this example, and then you choose the facing brick that you want to use, the roof tile type, the guttering system, the fascia system, and so on before you start estimating. The use of mini-specs will actually decrease the amount of work you need to do with the main specifications, because there's obviously no need to set the brick type or roof tile and the associated labour in the specs. Mini-specs are covered in detail in a video online called Mini Specifications. So if you go to the HPXL support site and type in Mini Specifications, you'll be able to learn more about them there. Okay, so that's the specification section of our training all finished. The main thing that you need to understand is that the specification dictates which materials are used and how much is needed to complete each task. The specification also controls which labourers are used and how long it will take to complete each task. To leave the specification screen, click Close to return to the library of specs, and then click Close again to return to My Settings. Okay, so finally something really simple to end with, profit and inflation. So on the My Settings menu, click My Profit and Inflation. And this screen is where you can set the default settings for profit and inflation. So set these figures to whatever you'd like as your normal rates when starting an estimate. You can, however, tweak them once you've started estimating. Set the delay here before you start adding inflation to your costs. It's set to 13 weeks or 3 months at the moment. So once you've set those figures, click OK to finish. Okay, so now we've laid the foundations for an accurate estimate by setting up our price book and our specifications to reflect the way we work. That concludes Module 2.